What's up, Convergence Youth? So I want to ask you guys a quick question. Are you preparing for the promotion that God has for you? Are you? Well, we've got Lions cricketer Carmi Le Roux in the house with us. He's got an amazing message to share with you. He's going to give a little bit of his testimony as well as some helpful tips on how you can get yourself set up for everything that God has for you. So without further ado, get comfortable. Please enjoy.
Convergence Youth, what up? How are we tonight? Sure. Thanks, my baby. You can take a seat. I know you want to stay standing. The guy from Jeppy? Yeah. We'll be praying for people at the end of the service. So first of all, I just wanted to obviously thank Pastor Mark and Pastor Belinda for opening up their church to me. You know, what an amazing blessing this is. Thank you to Rico, obviously, for allowing me to come and speak to you guys. It's such a privilege. I don't take it lightly. I've heard that you guys are responsive. I was about to say it's going to be a long night then, eh? So I just want to open up with prayer, and then we'll get straight into it. So everyone just bow their heads, close your eyes. Dear God, thank you for bringing each and every one of us here today, God. Thank you that it's by divine intervention, God, that no one's here by accident. People are here for a reason to receive something, God. Let us be responsive, let our hearts be open, God. We invite your Holy Spirit here tonight, Jesus. Thank you that you'll just do a work that none of us can do, God. Use me, Jesus. Use the words that I speak tonight, and just let it touch people's hearts. And everyone said, Amen. Cool. So basically, I don't know. I want to ask a question. Have any of you ever approached a girl or a guy that you fancied? You know, anyone? Show of hands. Okay. So a few people know. So you know that feeling. You know, you've looked at them on Instagram. You've sort of checked them out, you know, you're like, this is my type. Give a little double tap, wait for them to like them back, then you follow and give another like, and then it's a process, guys, it's a process. And so you then obviously know the feeling when you are, like, now you've sort of got the courage and now you're going to go and speak to them. And so you see them in the mall or at school or, at youth, anyone? And so you see them and you know what you want to say. You know, you've got something to say to them, and you built up the courage and you start walking over to them. And as you're walking over to them, they turn around, you know, but now you're a few meters away. You haven't expected this. Now it's like, you're weak at the knees, you get cold feeling, and I mean, this is now the feeling that I got when Rico told me that I'm gonna speak to you guys tonight, you know. I know Rico's not the most beautiful girl, but like you can imagine, you know. So it's just that feeling, like I don't think I was the most prepared for. And he said to me, he was like, look, like he said in the beginning, he was praying and he saw me standing preaching. But to me, when he asked me, I was like, you know, like, that's cool, send me the brief, you know, I will go through the questions. Like when you sit on stage, have a bit of a panel, because that's what like the testimony usually is, you know. And he was like, no, you're going to be speaking. So I was like, I'm going to be speaking. I'm going to be telling my testimony, but we're going to be sitting on stage. It's going to be back and forth, bit of banter. And he was like, no, bro, you speaking alone on the stage with the spotlight on you. And I got that exact same feeling, that weak in the knees. But I knew that God was stretching me, and I knew that I had to be prepared, you know. So if you are taking notes, who's taking notes? Okay, you guys will get into heaven quicker. So if you are taking notes, there's no sort of title, but if there was one, it would just be being prepared for the promotion that God is going to bring you into. So Rico touched on it. I grew up playing cricket. I started playing cricket when I was 2 years old. My first 3-day tournament was when I was 4. I played a 3-day tournament. So the first half an hour, I was playing cricket. The second, the 2 days and 3/4 left, I was catching butterflies, just because I was 4 years old. I played a day-night game. Some of you don't know, that's just like a night game of cricket. There's lights and everything. But now I was like 6 years old. And I was next into bat. And I thought to myself, this is like quite daunting. I need to walk across the field alone. It's nighttime. I'm scared of the dark. And I burst out into tears and I couldn't do it. And listen, don't laugh, eh? I think we were all scared of the dark at 6 years old, eh? I won't lie, some of us are still scared of the dark. So, yeah. And so then went through the school system. I like moved schools 4 different times. Ended up at Kes. Thank you, Jesus. Then eventually made like provincial teams, Gauteng under 17, Gauteng under 19, eventually to Gauteng Strikers, which is semi-professional, and then Lions, which is professional. And through that whole stage, I faced a lot of injuries, and nothing ever came easy. I was always a kid who would like rock up and like, yeah, I was good, but there was always guys better, and they would get picked ahead of me, and I was like, oh God, like I feel like this is a calling on my life. And so I went through it, and I kept getting injuries. And quite recently in my career, I tore my hamstring while I was playing. And so that was quite a big setback. I was out for 4 weeks, busy rehabbing it, and I came back 4 weeks later, and the very next game I tore it again. And I won't lie, like I was really, really angry with God, I thought, like I've been doing my part, I'm a Christian, why is this happening to me, And so I took my hat from the umpire, I walked off the field, and I went up the stairs, got into the change room, and like God's got a sense of humor. There was a blackboard as I walked into the change room, and it had a big smiley face on it, and it said, "Have a great day." And I just looked at that, and it wasn't standing by the end of the game. But I was just so angry with God, and I think a lot of us we don't want to say that, because it's God. But a lot of us feel that, like, God, why is this not happening to me? I'm doing things, but it's not happening for me. But I had to realize that God had a bigger plan for me, a plan that I couldn't see. It was out of my perspective, And I always stood on the passage of the verse Jeremiah 29:11, and it just speaks about like how God's got a plan and a future for you, to give you hope and to prosper you. And it was difficult, but I had to keep on standing on that. And a lot of the times, like we think that God doesn't always answer our prayers. Oh God, can I get 80% in this test? Or God, can I get a boyfriend or girlfriend? And He knows the desires of our hearts. Is that fun? Is that you? Like He knows the desires of your heart, and He's waiting. A lot of the time, He's waiting to give it to you, but we're not ready to receive it. Just like our earthly fathers, like they're not going to give us something that's going to end up harming us. And so, like you pray for a girlfriend, you pray for a boyfriend, and if He gives that to you, is that relationship going to glorify Him? As a single person, are you doing something now that God can entrust you with that person, for that test? Like, are you studying, or are you just wanting it to happen? It's all those little things that we need to put in place for it to go further. And it got to a stage where I had to be honest with myself, and I had to say, am I ready? My ultimate goal is to play for the Proteas. And I had to ask God, and I was like, am I ready? And I couldn't answer that. I couldn't answer that wholeheartedly. So I remember when I asked myself that question, I was making my debut for the Lions, and I'd been playing cricket for a good 20 years. And I stood at the top of my run-up, and I had to set a field. So when you bowl, you put fielders in different positions. And I couldn't. I just went blank, and I got so nervous. And it just made me realize I wasn't ready for that, That's why maybe God wasn't entrusting me. I hadn't been doing the work beforehand to make the Proteas. So I had to start developing small little habits in my life. So what I did was I started getting up at 4:30 in the morning. I know. Trust me, I know. Because I love sleep. Who loves sleep? I love sleep, yes. And but it was a sacrifice, God sees those little sacrifices that you make. So I started getting up at 4:30 in the morning to be at Wanderers at 5:30, because I had to be honest and say I wasn't prioritizing God, and I wasn't prioritizing my training. So with that, I would get to Wanderers at 5:30. I could have my quiet time. There was no distractions. No one's awake at 5:30, so there's no messages or Instagram or Facebook, whatever. And so I could have a good quiet time. I could read more. I could do extra training. And just put in that little bit of extra work, And to a lot of people, it goes unnoticed. But to God, it doesn't. In Matthew 6, it says that we shouldn't be working for the attention of others, but for the attention of God. And I want to ask you guys, like, what small little things are you doing in your life that is going to set you up for the promotion that God has for you? Whether it be in school or studies further on, or working, or whatever it is that God's placed on your heart. What are you developing now in your life, characteristics now that is going to set you up for a future? A lot of the times, or I heard someone told me that the size of your enemy is equal to the size of your promotion. So what that means is the challenges in that you're going through now, and the storms that are over you, that it's developing you, for what God has for you. So those little characteristics, it's something to develop for your future. A lot of times we pray away our storms. Oh God, I'm in this financial position, I'm poor, what can I do? Oh God, my parents treat me so badly. But a lot of the times we shouldn't be praying that, because God's taking us through that storm to develop us, A lot of the times we should be praying, God, how can this storm develop me for what's coming next? If it's pocket money, like, are you saving it? Are you giving? Are you tithing? Like, are you stewarding that money well now, while you have little, for God to entrust you with something bigger? So I used to fight with God a lot. I was like, God, look, I'm a good Christian. I'm a good Christian boy. I go to church. I do the good thing, But and nothing was ever happening. And I would be like, I keep getting injured, and like, why is this happening to me? Guys keep going further and further and further ahead of me, and they're not Christian, they're doing worldly things. I'm serving you, but nothing's ever happening for me, And I just had to, sorry, lost my point there. Later on, I could only see what was happening previously. Is the setbacks that I was having then were setting me up for now. I had a chat with a mate of mine, excellent cricketer, but everything came easy to him. And the minute that he didn't make something, or he was like, oh, Carm's like, I didn't make this team, if I don't make this team, I'm going to give it up. And I'm like, bro, like, you're so good, and you're 20 years old, why are you like doing this, But it's because everything came easy. He was not developed for a few setbacks. And that's what made me realize, I was like, okay, maybe God was using those setbacks on my life, that now, if I don't make a team, I'm like, okay, cool, where can I improve? What can I do better? What can I do better than the next guy, It's just a change of perspective. A lot of times it's like a bow and arrow. So if you imagine a bow and arrow, God's holding the bow and it's pulling the arrow back, and you the arrow, and you see people going past you, and better than their studies and getting girlfriends and whatever. But when God's timing is right and He knows that it's right, He lets you go, and then you fly past everyone. But it's all in His timing, it's not in yours. So I always felt like I had a calling to the Lions. I got offers from Titans, I got offers from other franchises and that, but there was always a calling to the Lions. I didn't know why. I'd pray about it, God would be like, no, I'm going to use you here. And then it got frustrating as well, because there were better offers, But I had to trust God that God's plan was bigger than mine. And because, the grass always looks green on the other side. But that's in the natural. We can't see in the supernatural, and that's what God's there for. Quite recently, I felt God stretching me a lot, Be it in our church that we started leading a young adults group, which was quite daunting me, because I've never led a group before. Just like speaking on stage, it's like I could feel God growing me. And in my quiet times in that, it just was preparing me for the cell group that we opened up at church. And I can imagine at school, it's not the easiest thing, you're surrounded by kids who don't necessarily know God and are quite apprehensive, and that's the same at cricket, like guys are so far from God, and now you need to be the one to tell them about God. And it's so difficult, because you don't want to like step on toes, but you know that this is the calling on your life. And so we started this cell group, and it started with one of us, which was me. The first day, no one rocked up, so I preached to myself. Then eventually it just grew. Every week it just grew, until we're sitting on 5 guys now, and it's been a few weeks, which is awesome. You know what I'm saying? Like God's been using us, and we each put in our, like Rico said, we each put in our own sectors to influence those people. I'll never influence the kids at your school. That's your guys' job. I'll never influence the people that Rico is around. With cricket guys, that's my job. I need to influence them, because we've each been given a mandate on our lives to influence the people that we're around, So then obviously time went by, and I met my lovely fiance. Can we give it up for her again? She's hating me at the moment. You know those eyes that girls give you, like if it's your mom or your sister or whatever. Girls, they don't need to talk. They do talk, but they don't need to talk. But they just give you these eyes, like, my man, keep quiet. So obviously I met her, and I'll tell you the story. It's quite amazing. So thank you. Before I was serving at my church, a young adults leader came up to me and she said, "Look, if you start serving, I'll find you your wife." And I was like, "Oh, get out of here, please. Don't come with that preaching stuff, you know." So eventually, after a while, God was tugging on my heart, and I started serving. And served for a while. And on a Friday night, we have young adults and youth. So young adults is a little bit older. So we were there. I'd never met her before. And we were standing there, and the young adults leader came up to me, and she put her arm around me, and she pointed at her, and she was like, "There's your wife." And I was like, "No, she's got a boyfriend. Like, no, it's not going to happen. She's cute, you know, but it's not going to happen." But yeah, it's not going to happen. And turns out 4 years later, I landed up proposing to my fiancée. And that's just like by God's grace, you know. Like I wasn't that guy to go and speak to her when she had a boyfriend, but that's just how God works, you know. And He put it on her heart to tell me. And for me, coming into the relationship, I'd come out of being single for quite a while. So I was never felt pressured into dating because my friends did it or because it was the thing to do. So I was very selfish because I never had to consider anyone else. It was only about me and what I felt was good for me. So coming into this relationship, it put a bit of strain on it, and it's something that I had to develop, you know. And if I can encourage you guys, you know, if you're single over here, don't take that lightly. Singleness is such a blessing, and if you're doing single well, you're going to do relationship unbelievably because you're developing yourself for what God is. A relationship, God is about a relationship. God is a relational God. So if you're doing single well, a relationship is just going to be an unbelievable thing. Then I want to be a little bit vulnerable with you guys, you know. Especially to the guys. I think porn is such a massive thing in today's society, and it's shown on TV and MTV and all of that stuff. And while I was single, like it had a grip on me for a while, you know. And as guys, you can think, oh, it's not hurting anyone, it's just me, no one's seeing this or whatever. And that was true until you step into something bigger than yourself. And it only popped its head up when we got into a relationship, and I found myself getting so jealous, you know, of guys, and I didn't trust anyone because I thought I knew what they were thinking, you know, because I used to think like that, and I used to think about girls like that, and it just like distorts everything in your mind. So I just want to encourage you guys, you know, like God's grace and love and mercy is so much bigger than that. And it's just about you guys bringing it out into the open, identifying it, you know, and just asking God for forgiveness. And girls, you know, like you guys are so valuable. Sometimes I don't think you know your value. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. And God has such a big thing on your lives, you know. Like don't just give yourself up for a guy who walks up to you just because he wants one thing and he tell you, oh, you're the most beautiful girl. It's lies. Like you must know your worth, but the only way you can know that, no, not the beautiful, the part about getting one thing. But the only way you're going to know who you are is to know whose you are, and that's in God, you know. So obviously now, moving on in our relationship, I felt like, you know, I prayed about it and God, this is the one, so I wanted to propose. And if I can give the guys some financial advice, please start saving now. It is so expensive. It is ridiculously expensive. So at our church, we have a thing called miracle offering. And it's just as a church, we come together and we just give over and above our tithes, you know, just to stretch ourselves and sacrifice ourselves. And you have a list of miracles that you want to happen in your life. And on the top of my list was to have the finances and the provision to propose, you know, and to get married. And you would think it's backwards because you would think you want to save the money. You would think, oh no, I need to keep this money, I need to save it for the ring, you know. But God doesn't work like that. God wants to see your heart. And He wants to see where you're at and the sacrifices that you're willing to make for something to happen. And so few months down the line, I got picked for the T20 competition that was meant to happen in South Africa. And it ended up not happening, but we had signed contracts and we got paid out 60% of our contracts, which was such a miracle, you know. And with that money, I was able to buy a ring. I was able to set up the proposal in Cape Town, set us up for marriage. And it's just, you know, it's just amazing how God works, you know. I didn't have the finances at that stage, but I entrusted God with it. And because I was just developing little things in my life that I wanted, because He knew the desires of my heart. He knew I wanted to marry her. And it was just that He wanted to see where my heart was. Was I putting her over Him, or was I going to sacrifice it, you know? And He was just waiting for me to act first, and that's what I did, and then it happened, you know. So yeah, as I come to a bit of a close, I just want to stress the point of: are you guys preparing yourselves now for the promotion God has for you? If it's pocket money, if it's honoring your parents, you know, with your pocket money, are you saving or are you giving? Are you tithing? How are you with that money? Because when God blesses you, that's the characteristics that are gonna come out. There's a lot of people who win the lottery, you know, a mass amount of them after winning the lottery within 2 years are in the same financial position or worse than what they were. But because they didn't have the skills and the characteristics of a millionaire to handle that money, and it just was given to them. If it's obeying your parents or obeying authority, if you're doing that here now, you're setting yourself up for running for president one day, you know. It's these little things that add up to get you to that success. But all of this and tying into it all, it all starts with Jesus and knowing who He is, knowing what He did for you. You know, He paid the ultimate sacrifice for you. He died on the cross. Nothing you could have ever done, and He didn't do it to gain anything. He did it to give everything.